Making headlines this hour, the Maldives condemns the Houthi group's attack on a Saudi vessel in the Red Sea, describing it as a serious threat to international maritime security and regional stability. The Maldives and Australia agrees to work towards establishing a formal bilateral partnership, marking a significant step in efforts to deepen cooperation across defense, security, trade, and climate issues. And the government moves a comprehensive bill to overhaul the leasing framework for lagoons and uninhabited islands, set to replace the long-standing Uninhabited Islands Act.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English with me, Abdullah Ahil. And now the news in detail. President Dr. Mohammad Muiz sends a message of condolence to Japan following a powerful earthquake of Kumamoto Prefecture that killed several people, injured many others, and caused widespread damage to homes, property, and critical infrastructure. In a message addressed to Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, President Muiz expressed profound sadness over the disaster and conveyed the deepest sympathies of the government and the people of the Maldives to the Japanese government and its people. The president also extended his condolences to the families of those who lost their lives and expressed solidarity with those who were injured, displaced, or otherwise affected by the earthquake. He said the thoughts and prayers of the Maldivian people were with Japan as it faced the challenges of recovery and rebuilding in the aftermath of the disaster. Concluding his message, President Muiz offered his prayers for the safety and well-being of the Japanese people and expressed hope that the country would find strength, comfort, and a swift recovery. The Maldives condemns the Houthi group's attack on a Saudi vessel in the Red Sea, describing it as a serious threat to international maritime security and regional stability.
In a statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Maldivian government said the attack endangered the freedom and safety of international navigation and marked a dangerous escalation in one of the world's most strategically important shipping routes. It warned that continued attacks in the Red Sea and the Bab al-Mandab Strait could disrupt global energy supplies, undermine regional stability, and have wider consequences for the global economy. The government called on the international community to ensure the implementation of relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions, including resolutions 2216 and 2722, as well as international law, including the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. The Maldives also condemned attempted drone attacks targeting oil facilities in eastern Saudi Arabia and the capital, Riyadh, describing them as a violation of the kingdom's sovereignty and a threat to regional security. In a statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Maldivian government said the attempted attacks constituted a blatant violation of Saudi Arabia's sovereignty and territorial integrity and posed a serious risk to peace, security, and stability in the region. The Maldives reaffirmed its solidarity with the Saudi government and people, expressing support for all measures taken by the kingdom to safeguard its sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity.
The Maldives and Australia agrees to work towards establishing a formal bilateral partnership, marking a significant step in efforts to deepen cooperation across defense, security, trade, and climate issues following high-level talks in Male City.
The commitment was made during the third Maldives-Australia Senior Officials Talk, co-chaired by Maldives Foreign Secretary Fatimat Inaya and Australia's First Assistant Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Sarah Story. Senior officials from both governments took part in discussions covering a broad range of bilateral and regional priorities. Officials said the decision reflected the positive momentum in relations over the past year, pointing to Australia's Australia's recent gift of a Guardian-class patrol boat commissioned as CGS Imaduddin and the launch of direct flights between Male and Melbourne in May. Defence and maritime cooperation featured prominently during the talks, with both sides discussing closer collaboration on maritime domain awareness, aviation and port security, cybersecurity, countering violent extremism, and law enforcement. The Maldives also welcomed Australia's continued support in strengthening the country's maritime capabilities to enhance security and resilience in the Indian Ocean. Economic ties were another key focus, with officials exploring ways to boost bilateral trade, investment, tourism, and fiscal resilience. Both governments said the new direct air link between Male and Melbourne would create greater opportunities for tourism, business, and people-to-people exchanges. The talks also covered future cooperation in education, vocational and teacher training, governance, democracy, human rights, the rule of law, environmental protection, climate resilience, emergency response, healthcare, medicines regulation, and women's empowerment. Maldivian officials expressed appreciation for Australia's continued support through the Australia Award scholarships and other capacity-building programs. Regional and international issues were also discussed, with both sides reaffirming their commitment to promoting peace, stability, and prosperity in the Indian Ocean and the wider Indo-Pacific. They also pledged to strengthen cooperation in multilateral forums, particularly on climate change, sustainable development, and issues affecting small island developing states. Both governments described the talks as productive and reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening bilateral relations through practical cooperation, regular dialogue, and joint action on areas of shared interest.
The Parliament approves the appointment of Fatima Diana Saeed as the Maldives ambassador to the European Union or EU and Belgium. President Dr. Mohamed Muiz submitted Diana's nomination to Parliament during the sitting held on the 7th of this month. Following its review, the Parliament's Foreign Relations Committee endorsed her appointment. After examining the nomination, the committee concluded that Diana is suitably qualified and meets the requirements for the post. Members attending the committee meeting unanimously agreed that she is fit to serve as the Maldives ambassador to the European Union and Belgium. When the committee's report was presented to the full Parliament, the nomination was approved with the support of 52 members. During the administration of former President Mohamed Nasheed, Diana served as the Attorney General. She later served as Gender Minister during the administration of former President Dr. Mohamed Wahid. Before being nominated for the ambassadorship, Diana was appointed as Ambassador at Large at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in April this year. In addition, Parliament also approved the appointment of Ahmad Sarir, the Maldives Ambassador to Saudi Arabia, as the country's non-resident ambassador to Bahrain. His appointment was endorsed with the support of 53 members of Parliament. The Utility Regulator Authority, or URA, is set to undergo a major overhaul after the government tabled the Utility Regulatory Authority Act Amendment Bill moved by Vilufushi MP Hassan Wahid.
The legislation proposes 11 amendments aimed at strengthening the authority's administrative management, the most notable of which is an increase in the size of the URA board from 5 to 7 members, in addition to the Chief Executive Officer or CEO. Under the current law, the board consists of 5 members who must possess professional education and experience in the fields specified by the Act, serving a single 5-year term. The amendment would raise the board to 7 non-CEO members, all of whom must meet the same professional qualifications, while the CEO would retain a seat but would not have voting rights on board decisions. Additionally, the bill allows non-CEO board members to be appointed for more than 1 term, with reappointments made according to the same procedures used for initial selections, except for members removed by the board itself. Other key provisions include a clarified quorum requirement for board meetings, a stipulation that board members be appointed within 30 days of presidential assent to the amended act, and a stated goal of enhancing technical independence between utility operators and the regulator. During parliamentary debate, Milandu MP Hassan Mufid praised the bill for creating a strong system of check and balance, arguing that stripping the CEO of voting power would prevent undue influence and give the board broader authority over executive decisions. FEDU MP Ibrahim Didi echoed the sentiment, describing the legislation as a very important bill for the people that would centralize oversight and strengthen the regulatory framework. However, members of the opposition Maldivian Democratic Party raised concerns, pointing out that the amendment does not specify the qualifications required for the CEO position and questioning whether the proposed changes would truly resolve existing systemic difficulties or merely add procedural complexity.
The government moves a comprehensive bill to overhaul the leasing framework for lagoons and uninhabited islands, set to replace the long-standing Uninhabited Islands Act.
The legislation was sponsored by ruling party lawmaker Saudullah Hilmi of Tinadu North, was submitted to Parliament, and outlines a new system for designating, allocating, and managing these natural assets. Under the proposed Lagoons and Uninhabited Islands Lease Bill, the President will assume authority to earmark lagoons and uninhabited islands for a broad spectrum of uses, including tourism, fishing, agriculture, industry, economic and social projects, state functions, and any special purposes stipulated by other laws. While islands earmarked for tourism and industrial development will be leased directly by the government, all other uninhabited islands under the jurisdiction of local island councils will manage the leasing and administration. Lagoons, meanwhile, will be managed by the relevant ministry. The bill opens the door for both domestic and foreign investors. Uninhabited islands designated for commercial purposes may be leased to Maldivian registered companies, partnerships, or private individuals, as well as to foreign entities that re-register in the Maldives. For any other purpose, uninhabited islands can be allocated to any Maldivian citizen, registered business or association for activities such as large or medium-scale industrial ventures, economic projects requiring a minimum investment of $64,850, aquaculture, and related enterprises. Lease terms are clearly delineated, with an island designated for a specific purpose may be leased for up to 21 years, with a possible extension that caps the total tenure at 50 years. For islands without a pre-designated use, the bill permits a maximum initial lease of 5 years, renewable for additional 5-year periods. Financial provisions stipulate that acquisition fees for leased islands will be set by the Ministry of Finance, while rent schedules will be governed by the new law, except for existing agreements under the current act, which will remain valid but will be subject to the new bill's regulations aside from rent and maintenance rules. To safeguard the integrity of these ecosystems, the bill imposes steep penalties for infractions. Illegal activities on leased uninhabited islands will attract fines not exceeding $34,425, whereas any breach of the lease law itself could incur penalties of up to $64,850.
Managing Director of Maldives Transport and Contracting Company, MTCC, Ahmad Saudi, says that difficulties in obtaining materials needed to accelerate the progress of development projects across the islands are expected to be resolved within the next 3 to 4 months.
In an interview with PSM News, Saudi said that many of the projects awarded to MTCC involve land reclamation. He explained that 6 dredgers, including a large trailing suction hopper dredger, are currently being used to carry out these reclamation works. Saudi noted that an additional 16 million cubic meters of material still needed to be dredged using a hopper dredger. To achieve this, MTCC will need to lease another dredger. He said that leasing such such a vessel for 10 months would cost around $105 million, which would have to be paid to a foreign company. Although this represents a significant financial burden, he said plans are being developed to complete the reclamation works. Speaking about airport development projects, Saudi said one of the main challenges in completing the work is changes to the project scope after construction has already begun. He explained that as the size of aircraft currently operated by Maldivian has increased, runway developments were originally designed for smaller aircraft now have to be expanded beyond the initial specifications. He added that similar scope changes have affected several ongoing projects. In the case of Alifushi Airport, he said the revised requirements have become so substantial that the project is now being prepared to restart as an entirely new development. Saudi also said that MTCC has been awarded contracts to develop health centers and hospitals. Many of these projects are scheduled for completion by the end of next year. He said the company has already identified the work required and the materials needed to keep the projects moving forward. The efforts are underway to resolve current procurement challenges without interrupting construction. According to Saudi, within the next 3 to 4 months, MTCC expects the supply issues affecting the delivery of materials required for the projects across the atolls to be resolved, allowing work to progress at a faster pace.
The managing director of the State Pharmaceuticals and Medical Supply Corporation, or State Pharma, Dr. Shah Mahir, says that accurately forecasting the types and quantities of medicines required in the Maldives would significantly reduce the volume of expired drugs that must be discarded.
Speaking on the Ahashe Bunanang program aired by the Public Service Media or PSM, Dr. Shah said improved demand forecasting would allow medicines to be ordered well in advance while ensuring they arrive with a longer remaining shelf life. He noted that if medicines are procured with 1 or 2 years of shelf life remaining, the amount of stock expiring before use would be considerably reduced. The government recently established the State Pharmaceuticals and Medical Supply Cooperation to oversee the import and distribution of medicines. The company has also begun taking over the operation of 193 pharmacies previously managed by STO under the new State Pharma network. Dr. Shah said estimates indicate that between 10 and 20% of medicines in the Maldives currently expire before they can be used. However, he said this figure could be reduced substantially through more accurate forecasting and closer monitoring of medicine demand. He added that working closely with healthcare providers would enable the country to maintain sufficient stocks of essential medicines while allowing orders to be placed early enough to avoid supply shortages. Dr. Shah also said establishing a dedicated state-owned company to import medicines would enable the government to better regulate medicine prices. He would also reduce reliance on other suppliers and improve the country's ability to secure a steady supply of medicines. He noted that medicines account for around 90% of the country's total healthcare budget, describing it as a significant expenditure for a small nation such as the Maldives. Reducing wastage and improving procurement, he said, would also lower spending under the National Health Insurance Scheme, ASANDA. Medicine shortages have long been a challenge in the Maldives. While the health sector has undergone various improvements over the years, Dr. Shah said little had previously been done to address recurring shortages. He described the current government's decision to establish the new corporation as an important step towards resolving long-standing supply issues and ensuring a more reliable medicine distribution system.
Insights into business. South Korean stocks plunges for a second straight session as Asia's once blazing AI rally morphed into a brutal market reckoning, wiping as much as 2.18 trillion won from Seoul's equity market and leaving leveraged retail investors reeling.
The benchmark Kospi index dived as much as 12.6% before reversing some losses to close down 6%, extending Tuesday's near 11% rout and putting the market on course for its steepest monthly decline on record. The slide has erased almost 40% of the index's value from a peak reached little more than a month ago. Volumes were light, suggesting buyers have evaporated from what just weeks ago was the hottest trade in global markets, buying the chipmakers raking in cash from AI investment. Even blockbuster earnings from SK Hynix, which reported a six-fold jump in profit, failed to stem the panic as the results lagged lofty expectations. The chipmakers' shares slumped nearly 20% before recovering some ground, closing down 9.6%, while Samsung Electronics fell as much as 14% before trimming losses to 5.2%.
Taking a look at world affairs, U.S. Senate Republicans confirms President Donald Trump's nominee, Manhattan U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton, to be the nation's top spy, despite opposition from Democrats following an angry confirmation hearing.
Clayton fills a role vacated in June when Tulsi Gabbard stepped down after a tenure marked by clashes with congressional Democrats who accused her of advancing Trump's political agenda and promoting debunked election claims. The vote was 51-47 to confirm Clayton for the job of Director of National Intelligence, overseeing 18 U.S. intelligence agencies. The vote was along party lines, with Trump's Republicans backing his nominee and members of the Democratic caucus voting no. With just over 3 months left before midterm elections that will decide which party controls Congress, Trump has escalated efforts to make election security a central issue, despite establishing findings that voter fraud is rare.
Who won the 2020 election?
I'm not going to do this with you.
This is a job interview. We've established that you have an obligation to be honest and forthright with the committee.
Clayton, 60, is a former lawyer at Sullivan & Cromwell who specialized in mergers and capital raising. During Trump's first term, he served as the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, where he developed a reputation as a political moderate who sought consensus with the Democratic commissioners. His official biography shows that he has no intelligence background and lacks extensive national security experience, a legal requirement to serve as DNI. But his backers, including some Democrats before the controversies surrounding his hearings, said his position as Manhattan U.S. Attorney involved enough national security work to qualify him for the post.
Moving on to sports, FIFA says that the World Soccer's governing body plans to create a new commercial subsidiary valued at $20 billion as it seeks backing from its 211 member associations for the proposal in a move already criticized by UEFA.
The ambitious plan would see FIFA establish FIFA Forward Enterprise, or FFE, a wholly owned subsidiary consolidating the organization's commercial and event operations. FIFA said it would retain sole control as well as exclusive authority over football governance, competitions, the match calendar, and all regulatory and sporting decisions. Under the proposal, FIFA would invite external investors to purchase minority, non-controlling stakes in FFE to raise up to $4.2 billion, with the body saying all net benefits will be reinvested in the game. However, the proposal has drawn fierce criticism from European soccer's governing body, UEFA. Infantino, however, said every member association should have the opportunity to seek a fair share of the available funding to shape its own future. A FIFA spokesperson said the proposal will soon be presented to the 211 member associations and the FIFA Council, which will be the sole final decision makers on the matter. FIFA is working with bankers at JP Morgan to raise billions of dollars by bringing in external investors to take as much as 20% stake in the entity, a source said. The source added that former Liberty Media CEO Greg Maffei has been involved as a commercial advisor on the creation of the FIFA enterprise. Thrive Eternal, a lead investment strategy launched by venture capital firm Thrive Capital, is expected to be a lead investor in the entity, a source said. The strategy is a permanent capital vehicle focused on making a small number of long-term investments in franchises and cultural institutions. Thrive Eternal took a minority stake in Major League Baseball's San Francisco Giants this year. The vehicle was founded by Joshua Kushner, the brother of Jared Kushner, U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law. Former Walt Disney CEO Bob Iger serves as an advisor. Sources said Jared Kushner, however, is not a potential investor. The Financial Times first reported on the sale.
Concluding with news and lifestyle, in New York City, matcha, a vibrant green tea powder, rapidly becomes a cafe staple. Its presence is clear, often overshadowing traditional coffee with its unique flavor and health benefits.
According to J.A. Zeno Kyoto Ujicha Distribution Center, the first auction of tencha, the raw material for Uji matcha, saw prices hit a record $87 per kilogram compared to the previous year's $51. Despite owning tea fields, the company, which has over 300 years of tea production history, must purchase from tea farmers and wholesalers to meet demand. The situation is affecting consumers in Japan, particularly teachers and students of traditional Japanese tea ceremonies. Tencha seeds were introduced to Japan from China in the 12th century by Zen priest Aisai. Over the centuries, it developed into a tea ceremony enjoyed by priests, aristocrats, samurais, and now mainly by teachers and students of traditional tea ceremonies. Matcha production involves several stages. Tencha tea plants are covered with a black shade cloth before the spring harvest. After harvesting tencha leaves, they are steamed, cooled, dried, and ground into vibrant green matcha powder. In New York, matcha has become a staple on cafe menus alongside coffee and regular tea. However, a new cafe, 12 Matcha, has chosen to exclusively serve two drinks sourced from matcha in Uji, Japan, the matcha latte and matcha americano. The cafe has been getting serious attention from matcha enthusiasts and influencers, resulting in long lines in front of the cafe. Jiang did not anticipate the cafe's popularity, but attributes it to timing. In Japan, traditionally, people enjoy matcha alone in tea bowls without milk or sugar, but at 12 Matcha, matcha latte is also offered. But to enhance the Japanese matcha experience, the cafe plans to expand its menu with usucha or thin tea and cold brew mizudashi or cold brewed matcha. As matcha continues to gain traction worldwide, its journey from traditional Japanese ceremonies and modern global consumption highlights cultural exchange and evolving tastes.
And that's all the news we have for today. Thanks for watching PSM News.